Self-Aware Millennial. Welcome back to the Self-Aware Millennial. I am your host, J.Mix. And if you're wondering why I sound like Kermit the Frog today, it's because I have tonsillitis, and I will be getting that checked out once I go to urgent care after the recording of this episode. I started exhibiting symptoms about 2 days ago. I had a fever and swollen glands, pretty much. Felt like a sore throat, but it was a little less abrasive than a sore throat. So I was like, maybe I don't know, maybe I have a flu or something. I was hoping to God that I didn't have COVID, and after I decided yesterday to check my tonsils just to see what was going on, I said, it's tonsillitis, because I had tonsillitis for the first time like 7 years ago and literally had the same symptoms. So now I'm going to urgent care, as I said, in the next couple of hours, and hopefully this will all be gone in the next couple of days. While I'm on the subject of my health, I wanted y'all to know that the bloody poop situation that I mentioned the last couple of episodes ago, I've been getting taken care of. I'm not exactly sure what it is just yet. I'm going to a specialized doctor to figure that out in the next day or so, and I will update y'all once I get some information on what's happening. If you didn't catch the beginning of the last episode, July is Hold Myself Accountable month. So I'm taking this month to not only hold myself accountable, but I am pleading with you guys to also hold yourself accountable for the things that maybe you can work on within yourself. I want to give a shout out and thank you again to Beau for the conversation that we had this last episode about sexual implicit biases in the LGBTQ community. Today's episode is going to be a continuation of the conversation I had with Beau, but we will be tackling this discussion from a different perspective. But before I get into what we will actually be discussing today, I wanted to let y'all know that after this episode, the Self-Aware Millennial podcast will be going dark for 2 weeks. I've reached the point of burnout. I've been in this place before, and the only thing that has helped me get through it is by taking time off to take care of myself. The world will never stop for me, and that is okay. But I can take it upon myself to take a pause so that I can catch up with the world later. And that's precisely what I'm going to do. So wish me luck. I'm going to try my best not to think about the podcast for the next 2 weeks, but I can't guarantee it. All right, so our next guest that we're going to have on the Self-Aware Millennial today is Megan Whittle and Julie Dietz. Megan and Julie have officially lived together for the entire pandemic plus 3 months. They spend their time taking care of 2 cats while unsuccessfully trolling the internet for eligible bachelors to date. Megan has been a preschool teacher for the past 10 years, and Julie recently started a new job at a tech company. They met each other while doing theater in New Orleans and are anxiously awaiting to return to the stage again. Ladies and genders, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Megan and Julie. Self-Aware Millennial. But just to kind of go into it, I kind of started off, I told everyone what y'all have sent me about, what y'all are. I think, what I will say is that I was interested in how you were unnecessarily trolling the internet for eligible bachelors to date. So I wanted to know more about why it's been unsuccessful so far for you. And just to go into that, and I'm probably going to ask you a few more questions.
Okay. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start? I guess you can start.
Okay, I'll start.
Wait, actually first state your names, because if people aren't watching us, they're not going to know who you are.
Yeah, okay, this is Julie speaking. I guess I've been online dating recently since the fall of 2019, after getting out of a relationship that I was in for 3 or 4 years that ended really badly. And I think that I say I've been unsuccessfully trolling the internet for eligible bachelors because, I find myself to be just extremely picky, from the get. I'm not swiping on a lot of people in general. just in general, I'm not. And then I have also had experiences, most of the experiences I've had with dudes, and I really have only been dating men since ever, but also since my most recent online dating shenanigans, I've had experiences of just, I guess with two guys, like being excited about them and then having bad experiences with sex with them, honestly. Like,
Ooh, gotcha.
Like both of the experiences I've had ended in, like, one of them was just like how would I explain this? Like, it turned into like really rough sex, like pretty much non-consensually.
Oh.
And then the second guy that I ended up being like really excited about, this happened very recently. We were like very consensually hooking up. I was really into it. And I kept on saying like, I'm not going to have sex with you. And then like, basically I just realized that after I had left the house that I was like coerced into sex. Like, we ended up having sex and like, he could have said it was consensual, but like after really processing it and being like, why do I feel icky about that? It was like, oh, it's because I said no and he wouldn't let it go. And so I was just like, okay, fine, let's just do it.
I got you.
So, you know, it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, I don't even know how to, like, that's really unfortunate, only because there's probably a lot of people out there that would be respecting your wishes. And that frustrates me. I'm frustrated for you. Oh God.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and I think it like is always one of those things where it's like, okay, like, is this a conversation? Do I give this another try? Because
right.
Both dudes like actually really sincerely apologized when I said, you know, what I was feeling after I had processed it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it always comes down to like, with both of the guys, it was within the first 3 or 4 dates that happened, and I'm like, it feels like a red flag at that point.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I guess, if you don't mind me asking, the questions or the conversation that y'all had like leading up to your sexual encounters, was it really, I feel like, at least from the conversation that you're having with me about it, it seems as though you were pretty open about it from the get-go with them about what your boundaries are and whatnot, but were they just as?
Right. And I think that, like, I do feel like I was clear from the beginning, but I think that a big takeaway from both of these experiences for me is, like, it takes two to tango. And I'm not saying that, like, I deserved this, but absolutely I think that, like, there is room for growth with me with doing exactly what you're saying, which is, like, in the future, I'm going to practice, like, before anything gets hot and heavy, just being like, hey, let's talk about sex and, like, what you're comfortable with and what I'm comfortable with, so that when we are in the moment, like, neither of us are going to cross that line that's going to leave either of us feeling yucky.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, as you know, if you've listened to any of the recent episodes, July is Hold Myself Accountable Month. So, you know, this is something that we can all work on together. And that is definitely great if you're going to continue looking for the Bachelor on Tinder. Maybe even, or I don't even know if you use Tinder. I just like assume that you're using Tinder. But I would say definitely if you are using any sort of dating profiles, maybe even if you put the word consensual in there anywhere, like it helps. That's all I'm gonna say on that for now. That's another.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah, just put, like, I've said, I think on mine I say something about, like, I am open to consensual experimentations or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I put consensual so that they're like, oh, consensual, right. You know. I think we've been talking about this beforehand. But yeah. What about you, Megan?
Oh, well, I have to agree with Julie. I'm very picky. We've also, like, been sharing our experiences on dating sites. I also tend to go towards men that are unavailable or like, how would you describe, or just like,
what do you mean by unavailable?
Like, I sabotage myself all the time. Like, I feel like I do this thing where I say, oh, I like this man. We hang out, I like him. And then I'm like, oh, I don't like him for these reasons. And then they show interest. And I'm like, oh, maybe I do like them. And then I keep backing away, and then they end up getting tired of my inconsistency. I don't know. I've been picking very strange people, maybe, that she's just smiling. I'm like, how do I make this sound like I'm just not an asshole that just matches with men and then that's it? I don't know. I just feel, no, go ahead, Julie.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that the conversations that we've had, which I think it's an interesting conversation that a lot of people have, is like, we talk a lot about monogamy, and like, Megan has said to me, like, I want to be with somebody monogamously, and I think that what you just said about self-sabotage, it's just like, I think that you have been struggling with like picking people who want monogamy as well.
Right. Because I have been non-monogamous for 5 years. So I'm like, I think I've had enough.
Yeah.
Like, I think I could settle down. And I feel like mostly everybody I'm meeting wants an open relationship, which is fine. And I have done that like plenty of times.
I feel like you're ahead of the game, where it's like, you know what you want now that you dove into that. I get that.
Right. So I think that's hard to find someone that's trying to also be monogamous. Because honestly, I feel like not a lot of people are, which is fine.
Yeah.
But very hard for me when I'm not trying to be non-monogamous at the moment.
Okay, cool. No, that kind of answered my question. So what's your ideal bachelor? If you had an ideal bachelor, who is it? What would it, or who would it be?
Ideal bachelor?
Yeah.
I would like someone that is passionate about something, whether it's like a hobby or a job, because I am so passionate about like theater and how it's like so special to me. So I think that like that is important. I always said I would, oh my God, this sounds terrible. I'm like, I would like someone with a good job, but a job doesn't really matter. So I'm like starting to realize that, how I used to always swipe on people. I would be like, ooh, an engineer. Yes. Doctor. All right. But it's like, that doesn't matter. So I started to not worry about that so much when I'm looking at men. But I don't know. Honesty is so important to me. I need someone to be honest, like always. I don't know. Yeah. Honest. Mature. Emotional maturity is important to me. Yeah. What do you say, Julie?
Emotional maturity is really important to me as well. I don't know. I kind of feel like if you would ask me this like 3 months ago, I would have such a good answer.
Right. I'm like, been evaluated. Like, I'm like, I don't know.
But yeah, now everything, I'm sort of like, well, honestly, like I thought monogamy was really important to me, but now I kind of feel like just being really intimate and honest with somebody would like fill my cup in like a really meaningful way. And I was like, and ditto, like I always wanted somebody with like a stable job. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, so many things feel unimportant right now. You know, when like I said, like 3 months ago, like, I don't know.
I can understand that, only because now we're living in a time where people aren't nearly as capitalized in their jobs. And so they're like, oh, I can still be loved and have all these wonderful things without having to worry about a job in the mix of it. You know, like it's almost, I don't know. I feel as though it's giving us another chance to realize how much jobs don't necessarily make the person that you decide to choose to be with. Because, I mean, if you even think about some of the jobs that like you mentioned, you're like doctor, engineer.
Right.
There's a lot of people that have these jobs that don't get a chance to be around their loved ones.
Right.
Because of that reason. So you're going to be dealing with that. So it's like you love this person, but you love them so much that they're never around. You know, like you got to think about those things too. So
right.
Anyway, thank y'all so much for giving your insight on that. I was just curious because I saw that and I was like, let me pick their brains a bit. But for everyone listening, just to give y'all a quick disclaimer. Sorry, y'all. I'm also, because I'm Kermit the Frog today, I'm going to be talking in weird frogisms today. So keeping our personal contributions to systemic racism in the forefront of our mind, we will be discussing from our perspective and exploring and answering questions about our own biases in terms of who we, quote unquote, like to versus prefer to date. And as the audience, we welcome you to reflect on your own biases whilst we observe our own. Feel free to take notes, even if they're just mental. I said this on another episode with Beau. I just want to let people know before we get into this, like, this is going to be a conversation for all of us that, you know, right here. But like, if start thinking about it in your own head and your own experiences. And I love that, you know, we're still kind of living in the weird COVID times where we have the time to really self-reflect. So like, why not use this time to do that, you know? So to kind of start it off, though, I wanted to give some more. I think rewire.org is saying that racial fetishism. You know what, you guys? I totally forgot to let y'all know what we're going to be talking about in this episode. We're doing racial fetishism and dating. So we're going to be diving into that. We're going to be kind of deciding, you know, like what is attraction versus what is fetishization. So now what I was going to say, the racial fetishism from rewire.org, it's a sexual preference for members of a certain race, typically people of color. You may have heard the term, quote unquote, jungle fever, referring to non-Black people who are attracted primarily to Black people. When I was just getting into the relationship with my boyfriend that I've been together now for like 7 years, that was one of the terms that they used when we were getting together. They said that we had jungle fever. So to like read this again and be like, oh God, that was totally like not cool, you know, just brought back some thoughts. But anyway, so I have another quote from rewire.org because they literally would give me everything. I just want to like quote everything from them, but I'm not going to do that. But I do want to give you all these quotes. So this is in their attraction versus fetishization area. You may be thinking, what's the harm in appreciating someone for their race? Isn't it a compliment that I'm especially attracted to this group of people? Don't these attitudes toward people of color help to eliminate racism rather than perpetuate it? Wrong. When you reduce human beings to characteristics often stereotypical of their race, ethnicity, or culture, you're objectifying them to fulfill your own personal wishes and expectations for how they should look and or behave. Racial fetishism also demands that a level of performance from the person of color who may not naturally exude the traits you expect them to have. In the words of Kendall Cunningham, my last quote, I promise, she said, "There is a fine line between thinking someone is cute or sexy as an individual and lusting after someone for their skin color and the attributes you assume come with it." So let's dive into what Megan and Julie have to contribute based on their experiences. So let's actually talk about, because y'all did talk about this before y'all even brought it up to me, because I think Megan, you were the one that originally told me, you know, Julie was giving you this information. You were like, I think Jessica will like this. So I want to like just kind of go into that initial conversation, or that initial, you know, conversation that y'all had with each other about it.
Yeah, so I think that the thing that sparked our initial conversation was, you know, with the current events of now, with the murder of George Floyd, and with like so much talk about racism in this country, systemic racism, and efforts to become more actively anti-racist, you know, my Instagram feed has like drastically changed as a white woman, and like, and I've just been exposing myself to the thoughts of definitely more Black women and Black activists and like Black thinkers, basically. And so I think that that's sort of also what I was referring to when I said like 3 months ago I would have said something different. Like, I really feel like I, just like a lot of people, have been trying to like sort of actively jump into, like, I'm doing air quotes right now, decolonizing my own brain in like every kind of way. And an activist that I've been following for a really long time, and she's also a sex educator, her name's Erica Hart.
Yes, Erica.
Yeah. She is, if you're listening and you don't already follow her, like highly recommend following her. She is one of these people who, when she puts a thought out there, it's sort of like your brain just goes like, oh my God.
That's so great. You're like, what? Have I ever thought of that before?
Exactly. And so right, I don't have the quote in front of me, but basically she tweeted, like, you have it.
Jessica, I might have it. I have to look for it. It's whatever Megan sent me like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I got it. Look. Okay, is this the one? And she said, it's Tuesday, so I figured it's time to remind everyone that attraction is never, quote unquote, just a preference. Everything you do is informed by the anti-Black, transphobic, fatphobic, queerphobic, ableist, and capitalist world you grew up in. That includes who you claim is just, quote unquote, your type. And notice when dark-skinned Black femmes state that they have a preference, they are given a very different response than most. Stay open. Don't close off your options, when what they're really trying to say is, it's slim pickings for you anyway, considering across the board you are seen as less attractive and lovable. So who are preferences really for in a white supremacist world? Do you get to say who you want to be with, or are you always the subject of who folks dislike? Erica!
Right? So
woo! All right. Continue.
Right. So that kind of like kicked the wind, like knocked the wind out of me. And I mean, there's so much to digest there, I think, but that's really what started. I said that to Megan, and I was like, this is kind of just a wild thing that I'm starting to really think about now, being a single person and just identifying absolutely that I have only ever dated white guys, white cis dudes, that I know that I have an attraction to women, and I've never explored that, that I consider myself to be an anti-racist white ally, but I've never dated a person of color or a Black person. And like, just sort of sending it to Megan, being like, what do you think about this? Like, what is there to be done? Like, what is this? Like, just, that's where the conversation started between us.
So then it just like, it started with us reflecting on our past dating life and like realizing that, even though I've like hooked up, me personally, Megan, I've hooked up with people of color, Black men, all sorts of men, I've only dated white men. Now, why is that?
Gotcha. Yeah. Heard. See. Yeah.
So it's like just reflecting on my entire 20s or more before, but so it just started up a great conversation between us.
Cool. Thank y'all for that. I love Erica, and if y'all want to follow Erica Hart, she's like all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm pretty sure she's on too. So let's discuss experiences with racial fetishism, whether it be from a giving or receiving perspective, whether you've given a racially fetishized statement to someone or if you've received it yourself as white women. I know I've had mine personally. I'll go into mine later. I want to hear y'all's first.
I mean, the only thing that I was like reflecting on when you sent me that was, I'm, a thicker woman. So I've heard a lot in my life, like, you got a big butt like a black girl, or, but I don't know, is that racial? Is that something like, that's not really.
I think it is, only because
I've heard my whole life, you got DSLs, girl. I, as a white woman, have never had like, I don't know, I've never felt somebody
has never said to you like, oh, your skin is so white.
So, yeah, like I've never had that experience.
I still think that it's in a way racial fetishization, only coming from like a black woman's standpoint, because I guess everyone expects for a black woman to have quote unquote features of like big butts or big whatever's like, and that's not always the case. Like big butts is genetic, which it transcends racial identity or racial, you're like, so I think that is a form of fetishism. I don't know how to like completely go into why that is at this point, but the fact that a white woman can't have a big butt without someone thinking that it's fake, I think there's something wrong with that, So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And my experience has been similar. Like, I have a big butt, and like just like the obsession with the butt. But of course, it's like there's like a fine line, because it's like there's like the fetishization, right? The comparing my butt as a white woman to like and some guy like calling it a big black ass,
right? Ooh. Or you thick for a white girl, or like things like that.
Yeah,
I've heard in my life.
I mean, ditto.
Yeah.
But I can't. But I feel like it hits different. Like me being white, Like,
yeah. Is it almost considered a compliment? Do you feel like it's a compliment when you're given?
I mean, sometimes I've been like, I know, thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with having.
Right.
I mean, since big butts right now in our society is the standard, it was not that like 20 years ago.
Right.
But
absolutely. Like whenever I've been on the receiving end of a comment like that, like it's always just been to me like, yeah, thanks, and like me like owning it and feeling great about it, but not really like thinking too deeply about it. Like, that's actually fucked up, because like, sorry, I don't know if like you allow cursing on this, but
I allow it. You're good.
Wait, what did you say?
I said I allow cursing.
Okay. But right, like that stereotypical attribute and like the objectification of a part of the body of a black woman, like it's like there's so much to dig into there, that there's so much like wrong with that comment, really.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you're looking at it from a feminine or say a cis female's perspective, having a big butt right now is really important. But I also say, like, if we were to turn it around and talk about cis males right now, I feel like their equivalent of having a big butt would be having a big dick. And people, like, black men are the ones that are like, I guess for some reason they expect all black men to have big dicks for some reason. And, they really hone that on Pornhub. But but I think that it kind of goes along the same lines, where it's like people think that, oh, white boy has a big dick, wow, he's like you have a black man's dick or something like that, but length of, like, it's like the same principle, but like obviously it's not about having a big butt. But I don't know, I think that.
But I would like to say that even though I knew personally that these biases exist, like I knew that like some people like strictly black men, I never knew until me, 31 years old, like 3 weeks ago, that it was called racial fetishism. I had no idea. I was like, Julie! And she's like, yeah, Megan. And you were like, I know, I've experienced this. And that just shows, like, as a white woman, that I literally had no idea that term existed.
Yeah, I've heard of the term, but I never really like looked into it, because I knew by reading it, I was like, been there. But it makes a lot of sense. I will say going back to the big ass situation, I know that, and I'm not gonna disclose who, but there was a situation where I was basically having sex with someone, and they non-consensually, like, basically told me that, you know, like, I had they said something about my black ass, which was definitely not of their character ever, like, when it comes to, like, doing anything. You know, like, how, you know, like, how some, like, hey, when people are, like, talking, well, I'm not gonna assume, but you know that there's, like, folks that will, you know what their dialogue is going to be in the bedroom, just based off of what you've already experienced in the bedroom versus how they speak to others outside of the bedroom, or how they speak to you outside. You already kind of have a general idea of where that's going, unless you consensually talk about it before. Well, this came out of nowhere, and I was like, black ass. Like, it kind of killed my entire mood, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, sorry. And yeah, and I don't know, I think it was only because they put the word black in there. Had they not said, had they only said, like, big ass, I would have been okay.
Right. Yeah.
But big black ass, I was like, this is not okay with me. And I will give another example. This recently happened. There was someone that I was in an encounter with where, after the encounter happened, they were like, I've never been with a black woman before. Thank you. You did a great job, da 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 da. And I was just like,
thank you. You did a great job.
Well, I think, I mean, like, they were like, I guess they didn't know what to expect from a black woman because they had never been with one before. And so they were like, thank you for giving me a great first experience or whatever. And I was like, you're welcome. But I didn't feel comfortable with, like, I hated the fact that I felt as though I felt fetishized at that point because they were fulfilling, it felt like they were trying to check something off the list. Right, yeah. Just trying to see who I was as a person, which, I mean, in a way they did, but, like, I don't know, there's still that fine line where you can tell it's actual pure attraction versus, like, a hint of fetishization. So those are going to be, like, my two examples of that, but obviously there's more, but right now I just don't have the time to really dig into all the other interactions, because actually, thankfully, I have had enough interactions where my race has never been brought up, like, ever, which is great. Yeah, and I think those are the kinds of folks I like to keep around. But anyway, let's see. So we were talking about racial fetishization, but let's talk about sexual racism, which isn't too far off what we were talking about. And I'm going to refer to the Instagram post that you sent me, Megan, on July 1st.
Okay, I don't remember.
Let me see if I can find it right quick.
What is it?
Let's see.
I've been doing so much, like, researching and looking.
See, I got two accounts, so it wasn't on this account, it's on the other one. Oh, come on. Okay, I'm gonna have to search your name because clearly I have a lot of messages. And okay, July 1st. That was July 2nd. Ah, here we go. This is
okay. Yay!
Oh, okay. So it's this one. Let's talk.
Oh, yes. I don't think I shared that with you. Oopsies.
Wait, it's okay.
It's really good. So it's by Alex and underscore. I can't even pronounce it, y'all. I'm gonna just put it I'm putting the show.
I think I followed him.
But it's basically a guide for white people on sexual racism. I mean, it's a guide for white people, but I was also guided myself as a black woman.
Did I send it to you on your personal Instagram?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. But it kind of basically goes into, you know, what sexual racism is, and, you know, how some people think that their preferences are not based in any sort of systemic racism anything when it actually is. So, I mean, in the premise of this episode, that's what we're basically trying to do. We're trying to make people realize that a lot of your biases and a lot of your quote unquote preferences does have roots that are based in systemic racism or just racism in general. But, ooh, gosh, like everything that is just mentioned in this, gosh, reading through this, they're talking about sexual stereotyping and fetishization. But yeah, let's go into this. Let's go into this because I mean I could talk about this Instagram post, but I'd rather let's just kind of discuss it a little.
I was having this thought. I just started reading Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, and basically it's about the invention of race as we know it today. And when we were talking about, in the last segment, when we were talking about racial fetishization and about how, or fetishism, and about how, like, you said something where you were like, if he had just said, your big ass, that would have been one thing. But the fact that he said, like, your big black ass, that felt different. It sort of, like, made me think of something from that book, which was basically, like, talking about how when, you know, the slave traders were the Portuguese slave traders who basically, like, are the people who started the seeds of what we now know of as race as we see it today. When they were, like, categorically trying to, like, define Africans as a race, a lot of what they did was, like, describe them as, like, hypersexual beings, which is, like, not true. This is all just, like, made up so that they could dehumanize, you know, a population of people based on their skin color. And I think that is sort of, like, what's really striking me about, like, racial fetishism with regards to, like, black people, basically. Like, this idea, like, what we were saying before about how, like, if a white dude has, like, a big dick, we're like, oh, he has, like, this big black dick or whatever. That's sort of, like, identifying this, like, super sexual thing and equating it with, like, blackness. And, like, just thinking about, like, where that would have, like, come from. And I mean, I don't know. I'm very uneducated about this, but that's sort of, like, the connection that my brain just made. It's like, this was all made up, and it was all made up on purpose.
You know what? Sorry to hold that thought, because I just thought about the white black dick situation. I don't think it's necessarily that, okay, you got a white boy with a big dick, right? I feel like it's almost like, okay, you're about to get into it. You see if this white boy has a big dick, it's almost just like at least coming from my standpoint as a vagina owner / cis female, for me, that's something that I like, oh, that's an extra bonus, a cherry on top of the ice cream or whatever. But when you see that someone black that I'm hooking up with or whatever doesn't have a big dick, it's like a letdown. Because you expect all black guys to have big dicks. It's almost like they can't just be normal, you know?
Right.
So that's why I'm like, why do we have this expectations? Why do African Americans in general have expectations that they have to have this, and this in order to be considered, you know, black? Or to, you know, to actually, you have to, like, fulfill these biases, these checkpoints, or these, sorry.
Or, like, and I see what you're saying. Or, like, with a white guy, it could be like, if he had a small dick, it'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's...
Yeah, like, I was already expecting it, or not, you know, like, not that I want to expect it, but, like...
Right, but you're not like, oh, shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, I'm glad we're using this metaphor. It's
right.
But I'm sorry, you were saying something else before I said, you know, hold up.
Oh, no, it's fine. I guess I was just like, you know, these ideas, these, like, stereotypes, they, like, come from somewhere. Like, I think that's sort of a lot of what I've been, like, really... and I think that another reason I'm thinking about this is because I know that Megan said that you had listened to this podcast too, but it was Invisibilia did that episode about that Asian woman who was like trying to decolonize her mind because she had only ever dated white guys. Well, if you listen to this episode. And I just listened to it, and in it, the idea, like this idea of like that we are familiar with, which is like the hypersexual Asian woman versus like the non-sexual Asian man. And like they really deconstruct that and kind of point to where it came from in our history, which is, I'm not going to be super accurate with this, but from what I can remember, it's like, you know, American soldiers go to Vietnam and like end up bringing back like Asian wives.
Yeah.
And then there's like all these terrible, like super racist laws written into our country, which say that like Asian men basically can't get married. And so then like fast forward like years and years and years, it ends up turning into this like stereotype that like Asian men are like not sexual at all. And I guess it's just like, it's an interesting thing because it's just like, you know, like I walk around the world with like these beliefs that I'm not like proud of. But it's also like, where did this like come from?
Where did it come from? Yeah.
Right.
And I think that that's a really interesting and important thing to like consider is like these are, all of this is made up. Yeah. That's not to say that it doesn't affect the people who are the victims of these terrible stereotypes, obviously. Like, it's real and it's made up at the same time. And, like, it's just a wild thing to, like, consider. Like, yeah, where did it come from? Where did this, like, hypersexualization of Asian women come from? Where did this hypersexualization of, like, black girls come from? And it was invented.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those white supremacy, man. It
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And clearly, I think that is exactly where it came from. We can't pinpoint it. I can't pinpoint it because I know enough of the history that we've been told.
Right.
But as for the exact person that started it, I can't just point my finger. Right. Which is what sucks because now we're like, somebody started this and we don't know who it is, so we don't want to take the blame because it wasn't actually us. Yet we're all affected by it, you know?
Right, and we all, like, and now, like, right, here we are just, like, walking through the world with these, I'm putting in air quotes, like, racial preferences in dating. And it's like, this doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve my community. And, like, I think that a cool thing that podcast episode did was, like, it's telling the story of a woman who tried to challenge her own preferences.
Yeah.
And that also got, like, pretty murky because she ended up fetishizing black men in her desire to stop dating white dudes.
Yeah.
And this was during Vietnam War, right? Was that what you were saying?
Well, the episode takes place in like 2016 about a woman who's like in college, just basically realizing that she has these that she's only ever dated white men.
Gotcha.
And her community, like, I don't know I kind of forget what happens, but basically she ends up being called out, being like, why are you only dating white men? As an Asian woman, like, you should be dating, you know, and there's all sorts of things that go into that. Like, nobody should be dating anybody, but
right.
She ends up challenging herself in 2016 to sort of just, like, open her scope of who she's willing to date and who she finds attractive.
Yeah.
So she stops, like, swiping right on white dudes, like, categorically.
Yeah. Like purposefully.
Like on purpose.
On purpose.
And then, of course, like, the person who's following her on this journey is sort of like, well, is that kind of fucked up too? Because you're purposefully only going after, like, people of color? Like, is that dehumanizing to the people that you're dating?
You know what? They're wrong about that. That they're not wrong about that. I could see, like, there's good intention, obviously, that she's doing. Right. Like, she wants to just get to know people that are not of the norm that she normally gets to know. But, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of like what happened to me, where they're just like, thank you for being the first. Right. And like it just makes you feel more token than anything. It doesn't make you feel like you are just being a human that is capable of giving this person whatever they need at the time. It's like you feel more, again, fetishized.
Like an object.
Yeah, like an object, exactly.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I don't know if we actually went into this conversation or not, but has there ever been a time in your life where you feel as though you fetishized someone someone that's, more preferentially someone that is not of your racial identity? Have you been in a situation where you have done that and just realized like, oh, I did that, and now I'm not going to do that anymore?
I don't know. Fetishized. I mean, I've definitely have been with a black man, and have been like, his skin looks so good on mine. Mm-hmm. Like when we've been sexual. But like, I guess that's so bad. That is bad.
Well, okay, I don't.
Is that like a fetish thing?
I don't know if skin. I don't. Maybe,
girl. I am basically being like, I wouldn't do that with a white man. I literally would not have sex with a white man and be like, great, white skin.
I think it depends. I think it honestly would depend on the quality of relationship you had with that black guy before y'all hooked up.
Oh, right.
If it's just like, if you just met him and it's like, ooh, skin, like.
No, sure. No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, I think, there's a great, I think I was saying this with Beau last episode, but like, you can acknowledge each other's differences and that not be considered fetishization. It's like, but there is in the fetishization category, there is more of an obsession with it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to have this in order to survive or something.
Right. I remember you sharing that. What's the difference between a kink?
Yes, exactly.
I don't think I have fetishized anybody. Have you?
I can only think of doing it to like celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh, okay.
I mean, I've got a really big crush on, we both do, Rami.
Oh.
I actually don't know his last name, but
I can't pronounce it. It starts with a Y.
He's this Egyptian American guy, and he's Muslim, and he's so hot to me. Like,
well, he's also he's brilliant. Like all of his work he does is just so wonderful.
Yeah, I also like him as a person, but I don't know him, and I don't know if that's.
I can't find him. No, well, I was trying to look for him.
He's Ramy. He's so cute.
Ramy.
Yeah, he has a TV show on Hulu. You would really enjoy it.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
But
it's okay.
Me and your sister do that all the time. I always share guys that I like, and he's like, no, man, he's not my.
If you're watching, y'all.
He's so handsome.
Yeah, swiping just so y'all see him. He's adorable. He got some features, He's
got some features. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has his beard and like, I don't know.
Do you love that he loves his Muslim religion so much?
I do. I respect that. I think it's nice.
That's not. I think in a way that's not fetishization.
No.
The fact that you like that he takes pride in his religion,
right? Like
that's not fetishization. That's admiration. That's more of being attracted to them,
right?
That's like, yeah, that's not fetishization. I wouldn't consider that fetishization.
Yeah. So I don't know if I can say I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time, like, categorically saying I haven't. Like, I probably have, but I can't really think of a time when I have. Like, and there's not, like, a feature about a certain race of person that I feel like, that I am, like, gunning for, or, like, looking for.
Right.
That's cool. I mean, I was just throwing it out there. I know me personally, And I was actually thinking about this the other day because I was like, I don't know if I've really fetishized anyone, but I really have. Because, and there's a lot of people, I hope y'all listening to this, there's a lot of people that when I say this next thing, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I have fetishized. A lot of people fetishize mixed people. Mixed people.
Yes, they do. They do. I'm watching this like UK reality show, and they kept asking all these white girls on the show, like, what's your type? And they're always like, mixed race. I like mixed races. And I'm like, that's fucked up.
Megan, you can identify the reality TV show.
Love Island on Hulu. But all these white women, like, so many of them are like, I only like to be with mixed race men. And I was like, that is wild.
Exactly. I think it's the whole mixed babies.
Right.
And there's and I've definitely been through that phase before. But then I was like, damn, I'm really just fetishizing these people, and I didn't see them as like people that didn't have a choice to be mixed. First off, not that it's not it's not beautiful that they had a mother and a father that are of different races that have just come together and decided to have them, but. Right. You know, it shouldn't be. There's a fetishization about mixed folks that still grinds my gears, because even like if let's say two people, black couple, whatever, they have a child, but that child comes out with some sort of European features, like let's say blue eyes or something like that, or whatnot. Like people are going to, like, when it comes to their features or any feature of like just a black child, they're looking for the European features of that child. They're like, oh, she has blue eyes. Oh, she has blue eyes. Or like, oh, her hair's so wavy or whatever. It's not even like they're not looking for the blacker features of the kids. They're always looking towards the European aspects of it.
And I also feel like white women, I could be wrong because it could just be your preference, but I feel like white women like mixed men because they would rather be with a lighter color person than maybe just a black man.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I'm processing right now. Like, I definitely see some of myself in that for sure. Like, when I'm swiping around on the apps, like, this is self-accountability month. Just like,
sure is.
That's right, girl.
But like, absolutely, like, I know that when a guy is more mixed looking or more light skinned, like, I'm more attracted. I mean, fuck.
It's okay.
We're taking accountability.
Hold yourself accountable. I'm the same way. But you know, where does that come from?
Right.
Why is that a thing? Why is that we are automatically attracted to folks like that? I'm just thinking about celebrities right now that fit that stereotype. I'm thinking of Lenny Kravitz for some reason. Thinking of Terrence Howard or like freaking, I don't know why Jason Momoa is coming up in my brain, but like I think he has some sort of, I don't know, he's like in there somewhere. I don't know like what his full like racial identity is, but I know he got mixed something.
Maybe. I think he's Pacific Island. Maybe.
So if he's Pacific Islander, then again, people are like, ooh, exotic.
Right.
Right. I feel like it's a combination of both. It's like what you were saying with the mixed baby and people looking for like the white attributes in the mixed baby, but it's also like, I know that like I have friends who have had babies with people of another race, and it's also like we're like, ooh, now the baby's like brown. It's so wild because we're also like celebrating the brownness of it, but sort of in a fetishized way.
Exactly. And you know what? Ooh, I just thought about this because I'm dating someone white. Every time we go around or whatever, like people are like, ooh, y'all gonna have some cute babies. And I'm like,
yes. That is a thing people say all the time too.
All the time. And it gets like, the more I hear it, the more annoyed I get because I'm just like, first off, why do you think we want cute babies? What are you looking for in that baby that's going to satisfy your expectations?
Yeah. I went to a very diverse schooling my whole life. I grew up in Jefferson Parish, and obviously a lot of people were mixed relationships, but that is definitely a thing people would tell, like in high school, they'd be like, you're gonna have the cutest babies. Like, I used to hear that all the time, which, yeah, is wild, because it's like, it's a baby. All babies are cute. It shouldn't matter what their ethnicity is.
That's exactly why we got little Gerber babies right now, that we are only seeing one type of Gerber baby and not like sorry, I'm thinking about the Gerber babies right now, because they did have a black Gerber baby recently, but it was like the first one or the second one, all history, like dark skin, beautiful female black Gerber baby. She's beautiful, and it's like, why can't we? And not just her, but like, there's so many beautiful dark skin. Everything that is just not highlighted. You got to go looking for them, unfortunately.
Right.
I rest my case on that. I really do.
Right. I mean, that has to have to reflect on people's preferences, because if you think about growing up and advertisement and what you saw in movies and music and whatever, you know, it, like, growing up, you never saw a dark black Gerber baby, or, you know, thinking about just like what we're exposed to in the media, or what am I trying to?
Yeah, I mean, like, I talked about this with my therapist actually really recently, talking about like body image issues.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And she was like, all of it is steeped in white supremacy. There's no escaping this. Like, all of it is white supremacy. So she was like, there's a reason that like cocaine skinny white women with blue eyes and blonde hair are on advertisements and billboards all over the world. And like, you know, she's like, here you are in my office, like, with your body image issues, and I completely fit into the realm of what is, I'm putting this in air quotes, normal. You know, and I still like hate the way I look because I don't feel that I compare or look like the women that I've seen in magazines. But it's like, and then imagine like, right, like, I have seen myself represented on some level. Right. At least my skin is represented. At least my hair is represented. But then it's like, you know, like, just like you're saying, right? It's like, where is the representation for every skin tone, for every hair color, for every facial feature? Like, I mean, it's really damaging.
I love what you just said, because, I mean, even just like, yes, in the white community, there is still a standard that everybody is trying to, you know, get towards. And even in the black community, for some reason, we also have like that ideal black whatever. Right now, it's for some reason everyone loves Beyonce. I don't know why, but that's again not.
No, not a Beyonce fan, but nobody hate me.
I'm not either, really. I do agree that she's a great performer.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, she puts on some really amazing shows, but I'm not part of the hive like the rest of them are. But anyway, I think that, first off, both of y'all are beautiful in your own way.
We all are.
We are all beautiful.
We are all beautiful.
That's right.
And if society does not see that, then fuck society, basically.
Pretty much.
So what I wanted to kind of talk about, because you know what, while we're talking about counselors, because I actually put this in my show notes, that I wanted to just make sure, if there's any counselors or therapists that are watching this and they aren't familiar with this this website, I'm going to actually put it in the show notes. But if you're a counselor looking for ways to ethically bring up client prejudices in counseling, so like, let's say you're in counseling for something and your therapist basically catches you saying something racially biased, giving them this link I'm going to send you is going to help maybe bring that up to your client, depending on what the client is in there for. It may not be, you know, for that client, but if they want to be held accountable for some of the things that they may or may not say, this will be like something for them to, this is a nice guide for you to present or for you to think about when you're talking to your clients or whatever. So I'm going to put in the show notes, but I'll just put it's ct.counseling.org, but I'll put the rest of it in the show notes so that you can actually go to the actual link. Um, but other than that, I wanted to see if Julie or Megan, if y'all had anything related to this topic to share, advice-wise, just because I know we're still kind of digging into this and maybe want to go through our own experiences and like kind of pick it out, just kind of have this more like round table, red table. We're gonna get into red table talk later, y'all. I don't know if y'all heard about. I don't know if y'all are privy to everything that's been going on in that whole round.
I have not. I know what's going on, but I have not dug into it like yet.
Okay.
I woke up at 5 a.m. and took a little.
You did it?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Whatever. Let's talk about it. Let's just talk about it.
I'm just like, God, I keep seeing a whole bunch of negative stuff about it, and I don't want to read anything. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Wait, are we talking about Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith?
That's what I thought. Are we talking about that?
Yeah, we're talking about them and her brief, I don't know how brief it was, but her relationship with August Alsina?
Okay, what? I don't know the background. They were separated?
And they have an amazing relationship. Yeah, you tell us.
So basically what's been happening, August basically came out on, I forget her face already, recently, like within a week or two ago. I forgot her name already. But he had an interview with her, and he basically kind of went into his relationship that he had with Jada.
Okay, right.
He kind of talked about it from like a broader standpoint, not giving too much detail, but enough to know that there was a relationship that happened there. And I think one of the main things that people kind of got from that interview was that, oh shoot, Jada, went behind, or may have went behind Will's back, or maybe they were thinking that or something like that. But it was messy. So people, Black Twitter and everybody was just like, ooh, we got you, we got something on Jada. So, but that Jada has Red Table Talk that basically premieres weekly or so on Facebook Live, or not Facebook Live, but Facebook Watch. In that regard, they were like, okay, Jada, we're waiting, because he already kind of basically he called her out in a way, not in a bad way, because he was like, in the end, he was just like, it was all love. And I think what he was also saying on that episode was that he got Will's permission to be with Jada. And
got a what?
He got permission.
Oh, right.
So
I read about
what's
that.
wrong with it?
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into, okay. So he said first off that he got Will's permission. The second thing was that, that he knew that at that time when they first started like hooking up or whatnot, he knew that he was kind of going through some stuff, and she even admitted that she was going through some stuff as well. So like they were both not like in the best stable mindset when they got together. But also I would say I'm trying to like pick out the highlighted points from his interview so that I can tell y'all like what Will and Jada said in response. I think the main thing was that in the end he got hurt and he had to like pull away from the relationship. Okay. My initial thoughts on that was because he maybe realized that he was never going to have Jada in the way that he wanted because of her still being like involved with.
Doesn't it sound like me?
Yes.
It's okay. I've been in the same situation, so I understand. I'm understanding it from his standpoint. Right. But from what it seemed like, that was what was happening.
Okay.
Where he, knew, it was already hurting him to know that it was never going to happen. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So he had to pull away. And, in the end, Jada and Will did end up, like, working things out, whatever they were going through or whatnot. But it kind of left August, kind of still in these feelings and not able to really do anything with them. So, yeah, that was August's side of things. So he said that with Homegirl, and I'm going to remember her name eventually, but for some reason I cannot think of it at the moment. So Red Table Talk comes out about 2 days ago with Will and Jada, and they address August's comments. The first thing that they mentioned was that August never talked to them before he talked to Homegirl. Let me see her name. Let me find her name.
The person he interviewed with.
Yeah. Let me find her name right quick, because I'm a really be upset if I don't get this girl's name right, because I think she's also kind of she's also catching a little wind, because I think her interviews, for some reason, Angela Yee, that's her name, Angela Yee. That's
from the morning show.
I don't know, maybe Angela Yee. I don't know.
I don't know who that is.
I know the name. I've heard of it before. She hosted the interview, and it was like an hour-long interview, but it was about other stuff. Like, they kind of had a little segment about Jada and Will, and that's what most people like listen to in the long things. Will and Jada, however, they kind of talked about how August didn't let them know that this was going to happen. Like, they never settled things between Jada and August in a way that they were completely comfortable with him going on Angela Yee's show to
expose it
in that sort of manner. But, Jada also admitted, this happened, but she never actually said what. She called it a quote-unquote entanglement. That's why everybody is like talking about
that's the entanglement. Okay.
Yes.
He calls it an entanglement!
Yeah. And so Will was like, an entanglement? Because, like, Will was trying to get her to... It sounded like Will was trying to get her to, like, actually state exactly what it was. But Jada was like, yeah, it's an entanglement. And, we just kind of left it at... He just kind of left it at that. But Jada basically, she said that. She said her piece on that. Will and her kind of just... It was a 15-minute conversation, Red Table Talk. It was special, so it wasn't like a 45 to an hour long like they normally have. It was just 15 minutes of them just discussing. They kind of poke fun about their quote-unquote bad marriage, too. And they just kind of make light of it, because they know that society is already judging them off of the stuff that they have currently exposed about their relationship. But I think there's also been a lot of assumptions in their relationship currently that people aren't completely privy to, people are just making assumptions about certain things. Like, some people are thinking that, I think a lot of people are considering what happened with her in August as cheating when it wasn't.
Right.
And, I think it's because we live clearly we are in a monogamous-esque world. A lot of people are considering it that when it's not actually that. Like, it was consensually. In this regard, I think it was Jada had separated from Will for a little bit, and that's when it all started.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the process, I guess, like, that's when, I guess her and Will got back together at some point. Jada also did admit that at that point, she was self-reflecting about herself and realizing that she's always drawn to people that she needs to heal. She likes to heal people, which is not necessarily...
You are very similar to...
Yeah. So, like, she sees someone needs help, and she wants to heal them. And it's another one of those things that, like, until you realize, like, where it's all coming from, it may or may not eat you alive, and you're going to be maybe doing things that you will regret later. But she mentioned that. She mentioned all that on the episode. I would definitely take a look at it, Megan, whenever you get a chance. Overall...
Sorry. Well, I think that, like, I my big takeaway from all of it was, like, sort of what you were just mentioning about, like, the judgment on it feels very, very coming from a world of, like, nobody can understand anything that's not monogamy.
Right.
Yes.
And so, like, this big wave of judgment on specifically Jada feels so much like the monogamous gaze being cast on this couple where like they don't fit that box.
Right.
And they have a wonderful, complicated, beautiful friendship, relationship. Like when I watched that, I was like, man, I hope I have that someday.
Right.
Same. Yeah. I feel the same way. I said the same thing. And I just hate that, at least in this instance, a lot of people are putting, sometimes like they're starting to bring up like their kids. They were bringing up Willow and Jaden, and they were just like, oh, well, you know, Willow's a little this and Jaden's a little that, so you know they're all kind of messed up in their way. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Why are they even in this situation? Like, them kids are so self-aware at such a young age. Like, oh my gosh. But to like even just bring other people in it like that, like it's not any of our business, and we as the public didn't even deserve to hear from them. But I'm thankful that we did. I'm thankful that they, you know, put their pride aside, basically handed their dirty laundry to us on a silver platter and said, yo, we know that there's no one else like out here doing this like we are, so here you go. You know.
Right. It's so cool when people are so authentic like that. Like, I think it's such a special thing that people can do that are like in the media and who are in the spotlight. Like, just think about like, I was like, there's some famous Instagram person who I have no idea who this is. This was years ago when I was in my bad relationship. And she got on her Instagram and like did a post about, like, it was a selfie of them as a couple, like going to couples therapy. And she was like, let's normalize couples therapy. And it was such a sigh of relief to me as just like a normal person in a relationship that was really hard, where I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, this is really hard. Yeah. And even like fancy special people who seem to have it all right and their whole life seems to be so perfect, like struggle and seek help and like work through stuff. I think it's such a powerful thing that Jada and Will did. Like, I think it was so brave. I think it was so awesome.
Yeah. I love them. I really love them. Like, I'm still like very much, I feel like everything they've done so far has just been very, I don't know, I don't want to say like heroic, but that's the best word I can think of right now.
Right.
But yeah, so thanks for talking about that with me. All that kind of like helped me like. Whew.
Now I'm like, is Jada my spirit animal? Because
I think, okay, this is what I think about it. I think that she, in her authenticity, is really relatable to a lot of people.
Right.
Like, I also have that thing of like wanting to save my partners.
Right.
Like, and like, I think a lot of us have that.
Right.
And yeah, maybe you two are just like, very aligned, but I think that like the more like we as individuals in general like expose our own things, the more we're going to see each other as a mirror. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we all share so much.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I will say in this instance that I also mentioned this before, at least in their situation, I think Jada and Will got together before they had a chance to self-reflect about their own lives. So they had to do that once they were together. And that literally separated them because they needed to do that. Now they're back because they've done that. And even right now, like, there's still like elements about themselves that they have already revealed that they're like, yo, still trying to figure this out, but at least they've acknowledged it and they know that they have room for growth, even at their ages, you know, like they're not the youngest of the young right now. They still got time to grow, but like, you know, but to think that you have your whole life together and that you got everything set in stone, even at like, I don't care, 90 years old, like that's no, like you're always growing, you're always learning new things, and you should always be open to learning So anyway, thank you, Will and Jada. Willa. Yeah. So I don't know if y'all had a chance to check out the game Monster Match.
We played it.
Let me just tell the audience right quick. Monster Match is basically it's branded as an online dating service, but it's actually a game that exposes the explicit bias of algorithms. It scales the plethora amounts of dating apps so that they're easier to understand. Instead of millions of users, there's just you, a real human being, and 100 imaginary monster profiles. And as you swipe right to like or left to dislike profiles, they'll show you how the next profile you'll see is affected. And then you get to know exactly what profiles you get and miss out on over the course of a few dozen swipes. Without actually having to go on any dates and talk to real people or put yourself out there. So if you want to try it out, you can go to www.monstermatch.hiddenswitch.com to try it for yourself. I'll also say that Monster Match does not have an app, so you have to go on the website and do it. But it's very well laid out. Like, you can definitely check it out on your phone. But I wanted to ask Megan and Julie, what did they think about the game?
Well, okay, so we read the info on it first, which is like the whole like algorithm thing, which like also just blew my mind in general of how dating apps do that. But we failed at first. We played it together and we kept matching with people that would be like, I don't want to talk to you. Like no matter what we said, we couldn't get a phone number from any monster. But it was interesting because then they would pop up and say, okay, you're only choosing these types of monsters. Do you notice how these look more human than these? And it was just like, interesting to see that. So when you keep playing the game, it pops up with new information. And the last thing that popped up was like about racial biases in dating, or basically it was saying how if someone is desired on an app, say like Bumble or Tinder, and they're getting more swipes, you're going to see them before you see anybody else, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just see everyone?
Right.
So then it just made me think of like, okay, how many people did I not see on these apps, or how many people did not see me on these apps, which was wild. But then I got a couple of numbers from the monsters, and I did good. But it was just interesting to like learn information. Also, they state how the reason why they want you to get so many numbers on the Monster Match is so people will see your profile more, because they look at your messages on these dating sites and they know when you're giving your number out.
Right.
And I give my number to everybody.
Yeah. I was surprised when I read that. I was like, oh, they're actually reading these messages
Right. So it's just like, like,
yeah, it feels less private at that point, because
right, and it's just like, well, how good are these sites doing for us anyway? I mean, for me, not very well anyway. But like,
right,
how much good is it doing? I don't know.
But go ahead, Julie.
Go ahead, Julie.
Oh, I just I was also shocked that they read our messages, and it's actually kind of funny that we're all so surprised that the app reads our messages. Actually, like, of course they do, but it was a shocker for me as well. But I like in relation to this conversation, just sort of how you were saying, like, they point out on the website, they're like, this is why there are sites like JDate and like specific sites for like different people, because like the algorithm is hiding specific profiles of different religions or different races of people, and it's
So tying this back to the original question that I asked y'all about finding an eligible bachelor, do you think that the reason why you can't find one is because of the algorithms that you now are aware of from playing the game?
Maybe.
I think so. Okay. I think that this conversation, coupled with the podcast I listened to this morning, coupled with that monster game, has actually made me think maybe it's time for me to not take a break from dating, but take a break from the apps. Because,
right.
I took my Tinder like I like hid it. I'm still on it, but like I hid my profile so no one can actually see it. I'm like, I'm done right now. I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah, no, it's just very frustrating.
It's starting to feel, I think that I actually have seriously dated somebody that I met on Tinder like 5 or 6 years ago, but I haven't actually met somebody that I have felt like I had like a really true intimate connection with from a dating site in 6 years.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I just wonder if this whole dating app thing is just a little bit too superficial and just leading us down these like paths that like honestly not even consensually is what we're finding out because of the algorithms.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's sort of where I'm at. I'm like, I mean, of course, during COVID, how in God's name am I going to meet somebody in real life?
But I mean, gosh. And I also find with Tinder, and I think I was mentioning this a couple of episodes back when we were like really in quarantine about how Tinder was kind of opening up their radius of folks that you could connect with to like basically anyone around the freaking world.
Right. I saw that.
Was like, oh, so I can start talking to someone like, I don't know, in freaking Africa right now if I wanted to. Right. But even though we'll like never actually see each other, or like maybe like just like, I don't know, something about that kind of. But even then, like, I don't know, I feel like, am I only looking at the algorithmically best of the best in Africa? Or am I looking at
right?
Yeah.
And I know that like Bumble and Tinder tried to be like woke and put like a whole thing. Didn't they put like an article out there that's like, we know there are racial biases in swiping and that Asian men are like, didn't they try to like do something?
I'm pretty sure a lot of them did that once kind of Grindr became a thing. As I was talking about with Beau on the other episode.
Right.
But honestly, I haven't really looked into seeing if the other apps have followed suit, unfortunately.
Right.
If I find anything, I will definitely let you know, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there has been a lot of studies that show that the algorithm favors white men mostly.
Right.
And it favors, like, black women and Asian men the least. That's pretty much what I took from it.
Right.
But anyway, guys, so I really appreciate y'all coming on here and just having this conversation with me, even through I don't actually sound very much like I was.
No, you sound great.
You don't really
sound okay. It's actually not as bad as the last time I had tonsillitis. The last time I had tonsillitis, I could barely talk. Like, I literally, like, sound... I can't even...
Well, at least you have an appointment, so that's good.
I do have an appointment, and I'm excited for it. And I think I could technically just wait for it to subside, but I want to just get it out the way sooner.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually going to be singing... I'm going to be singing tomorrow, and I just want to have a voice, like a fully lean out voice in order to phonate the way that I plan to do so. But I really thank y'all so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, before we go, I want you guys to state your social media handles so that people can follow you.
Oh my God, mine is, I don't even know how to spell it. Hold on. So annoying. Mine's like, okay, mine's Megan's MAAYGAMNS.
Mm-hmm.
And mine's just Julie Dietz. JULIEDIETZ.
Awesome. I'm gonna
This is really fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
No problem. I'm also just gonna put your Instagram handles at least in the description so that they can follow you there. But for my TSAM folks that are not listening or not listening, sorry y'all. I'm like, so okay. Let me also, before I close this out, I wanted to let y'all know, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but after this episode, I'm going dark for like 2 weeks so that I can finally get some time to just like mentally rejuvenate, because I've been going through so much, including this sickness that just came up, but like just everything going on with the protests and just like dealing with Willa Jean and the World War II Museum, and like all this just kind of like happening all at once. Like it really took a toll on my mental health and my physical health, and I need to basically self-care myself for the next 2 weeks. And so, like I told everybody, I'm taking this next 2 weeks to take care of myself. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'll be back in 2 weeks. They got a lot of time to go check out all the other 18 episodes that we have put out, and they'll be coming refreshed and ready for this next episode, episode 20, which will actually be with a dear friend of mine from college. But they are also known as Ariana Amor. Actually, I should also mention that they are what we will be talking about. Just to give y'all a sneak peek, we're going to be talking about. How do I explain it? You know how like millennials love astrology and just like we're going to be going into that and like where that fascination comes from, and I'm going to be read my birth chart and everything. So I'm like just really excited for it. So it's something that I'm looking forward to once we get back. But again, you guys, it'll be something that we talk about a lot more in the next upcoming episodes. But anyway, just so that y'all know where y'all can find me, if you have any suggestions or future things you'd like me to cover on the Self-Aware Millennial, feel free to DM me on Instagram at the Self-Aware Millennial, or you can email the selfawaremillennial@gmail.com. You can Linktree everything that I have on there. If you'd like to check out everything that's on the Linktree, it's like a lot of stuff right now. And if you're all caught up, you can go to the Self-Aware Millennial's Patreon, which has some really good bonus content there as well. You know what I forgot to mention though? Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, so by the time this episode comes out, the survey that Beau and I have started about dating preferences, like how we perceive our dating preferences, basically the last 2 episodes that we have been talking about all this, like we basically made a survey about it, so that basically that survey is going to be out by the time this episode comes out, and I really hope that you get a chance to check it out and take it. It basically goes into your personal dating preferences and how maybe they are problematic due to systemic racism. And we're just going to be gathering information and just trying to hear from other people and like where they are standing currently on that front, because we are now aware, considering it is Self-Accountability Month, that there are still things that we need to address and that we still need to come to terms with. And it's okay to do that right now because we are holding everything and everyone accountable. And I think the best thing also is that we should not just be holding others accountable. We should be holding ourselves accountable so that we know how to hold other people accountable. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, again, I thank y'all again so much for joining me on this episode of the Self-Aware Millennial. And I hope that all of y'all have a great day. I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye.